This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 294.
Welcome to We the SEs Podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? On this show, we talk to a lot of sales engineers. We talk to some salespeople. It's always good to expand who we talk to. Otherwise, we'll get the same ideas over and over. Which is funny, I'm saying that because my guest is a return guest. He goes by the name of Jeff Perry. The last show we did, we talked about the North Star. How do you find it? And today, Jeff is launching a book, or launched a book. Part of it was the area of genius, figuring out what your area of genius is. And that's a concept that I've always thought about, like, hey, what is my area of genius? And Jeff and I did an exercise today to help me figure it out. I still don't know what it is 100%. I have a better idea of what it is. That's why I love these sessions with Jeff. But you might want to go through the same exercise. Maybe you'll find yours easier. And maybe that means you get a raise or you get to do something you enjoy doing. Anyways, let's just jump into the show and have this conversation with Jeff. Mr. Perry, welcome back to the show.
Ramsey, good to be with you.
I'm so happy you're back. It's been a while. It's been like a year or so.
I know it's been a little while since we had the podcast and then just chatted in general. So this is fun to reconnect here.
Yeah, likewise. And you're kind of coming in with an event or an achievement, which many people have not done. They say everybody in the U.S. has a book in them, but nobody ever writes it. Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know where the saying comes from, but I think I would ascribe to that idea that, yeah, we all have a story to tell and things to share that can help people. And I've been thinking about writing a book for years now, and it's been a goal and something that I wanted to do, but I didn't ever actually commit to it. And then earlier this year, I said, hey, I'm going to actually do this thing. And I had some mentors that kind of pushed me and helped me get that confidence. There was just a lot of energy around it, and I made it happen. So it feels really good to have that, and already getting some early feedback from people who are reading and enjoying it is super fun to feel like, hey, I finally got this done.
All right. So before we dig too much into the book, Jeff, you've been on the podcast before, but can you reintroduce yourself briefly to people who might not have seen the first one?
Yeah. So essentially, I'm Jeff Perry. I'm a leadership and career development expert that specializes in working with engineers and technology professionals. And what that really means is part of my purpose is I help unlock potential inside of other people. All of us are full of, engineers go through science class, we learn about the idea of potential energy. All of us are full of potential energy that a lot of times is untapped, and it just is a process of uncovering that potential, getting clarity on who we want to become, and then taking the courageous action to do that. And I love helping people go through that process and become who they're meant to become.
I have so many philosophical questions about potential. Because you're talking about unlocking your potential. And then you talked about clarity. How we could have potential in things that we don't want to do.
Sure.
Right? How do you know you're unlocking the right potential?
Yeah, so to go to some of the principles from the book, which we're going to talk about a little bit, called the intentional engineer, right? Intention is a choice, right? So that's where some of the clarity stuff comes in. So all of us have potential to do a lot of different things, right? But when we align what's possible with what we care about and who we want to become, then that potential can get unlocked or directed in the right place that is in alignment with the things that are most important to us, right? Because I could go, and I have had this experience, and probably many of the listeners here have, where we get put in a situation, an opportunity comes our way, and it's not something that we planned or expected, and it just sort of got there. We were sort of maybe opportunistic about taking that thing because it was in front of us. And so we did it. And because I'm a reasonably intelligent and hardworking person, I was able to succeed. Great. So that was me like living up to some potential in that case. But I've also had multiple experiences when I look back, like, hey, that wasn't really necessarily me doing or in a situation that was kind of delivering my best and being my best. And so we can get into some of the separations of that and how to get into that if you want to.
Sure. It just basically what I understand from you is, in order to unlock the right potential, you have to know who you have to know yourself and where you want to be.
Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I love the first chapter of your book, I Was Lost. Sometimes I still feel like I'm lost.
Yeah.
Um,
Me
you
too.
were lost. Where were you lost?
Yeah. I think I was lost in my head, honestly. When I think about that, and I maybe didn't explain it like that in the book, but I was I was in a place where in my career and my life where there were good things going on, but I didn't really know where I was headed or where I wanted to go. Like it was kind of this place where I saw multiple arenas or places that I could take my career. I was halfway through an MBA program. I had done worn a lot of different hats and a lot of different roles. And I also gotten to do training and coaching and consulting and a bunch of different things. And I was like, there are a bunch of things that I could do, but I don't know what I want, right? And so that's kind of where I was lost. And I think I used the story of Alice in Wonderland somewhere in the book, like where Alice is going through the forest. If you're familiar with the book or the old cartoon movie, and she comes to the Cheshire Cat, and she asks the cat, like, "Hey, which path should I take?" Right, the kind of this fork in the road, and the cat says, "Well, where are you trying to go?" And she's like, "Well, I don't really know." And the cat then says, "Well, any path will get you there, right?" And so I spent a lot of my life and career before that point just sort of taking whatever path was in front of me because I didn't know where I wanted to go. I just sort of took the paths that were there because any path would get me there, right? I didn't know. And it's now been a shift for me and a shift for a lot of the people that I get to work with to define where do I want to go, and even perhaps more importantly, who do I want to become as a person? And that shift changes all sorts of things.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about your problem that you didn't know where you wanted to go. Me on the flip side, I'm lost is because I know exactly where I want to go, but I keep getting pushed in the other direction.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. And I'm good at whatever I'm being pushed into.
Yeah.
Which makes it worse.
Yeah. Well, that makes me think of the very first quote I put in the book, and this is from one of my mentors, Richie Norton. It says, "Intentional living is the art of making our own choices before others' choices make us." So so Ramsey, are you in that space where you've got a choice of where you want to go, but others' choices perhaps directing you in this other direction, which you can be successful at, but is it really aligned with who you want to become?
I won't say I have too many choices.
Okay.
I mean, here are the choices that I have. I can quit, right? Mm-hmm. Or I can try to find another job.
Sure.
Or I can excel at what I do, what I've been pushed into. It's hard to get another job these days, especially not like my goal has been to become an SE manager for a long time. The best way to become an SE manager is to get promoted from within. Right. I joined this company. I made the choice to join this company because the manager at the time promised me the possibility, the opportunity to become an SE manager within this company. And when I joined, turns out there wasn't one. So I made a choice given wrong information.
Yeah.
Anyway, but then I made the choice to be good at what I do for a little bit.
Sure.
Right. Maybe something will open up. You never know. And then I went on paternity leave, and I came back, and I was reorged out of my role into the sales role that I'm in today. Right. And now I'm choosing, I could go as an individual contributor somewhere else and then grow within it. I just don't want to do that anymore. So I'm choosing not to do that.
Yeah.
Right. It is a choice. So I guess, yes, there is a choice there.
Yeah.
But now I have to figure out, do I really want to become an SE leader? Because that's been my North Star. We talked about your North Star last time. That's been my North Star. But I've been in this role. I've been pushed into this role for a while, and I'm doing well. Maybe it's time for me to adapt or think about a new North Star that can get me the same satisfaction that I would have had otherwise. Because I don't even know if I get to that SE manager role, I don't even know if I'll enjoy it at that point.
Yeah, maybe not. And that's sort of the realities of life, is like we have to deal with uncertainty, right?
Yep.
But are you making that choice right now to stay where you're at because it feels known and it's comfortable? Or because you really feel like this is okay, great. Then that's totally fine, right? Like I'm not one that says you have to go like create or take big risks just because, like, follow your passions and dreams and like all this stuff. Like, you can still be quite practical. That's fine. And if you feel like there is opportunity for learning, growth, and development for you where you're at, then great. And the other thing is, it's not all bad to allow some of the opportunities that just come our way that we didn't intend to influence us, and they might be great. I don't talk about this in the book, but from another book that I would highly recommend, and I do reference this book, called How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen. He passed away a couple years ago or so. He was a Harvard Business School professor who is probably most well known for creating the theory of disruption. But in this book, How Will You Measure Your Life, he essentially applies a bunch of business development and growth theories to how we apply those theories in our own lives as we create lives that we care about, right? And so one of those is a concept of strategy, and we can take a deliberate, or I might use the word intentional strategy, right? Versus an emerging strategy. And it's not either or, it's both at the same time. Yes, we need to make those plans, define the strategy, define your North Star for the things you care about. At the same time, there are going to be opportunities and conversations and challenges that we can't anticipate. And some of those might actually be great, but as you're able to move that or analyze that through the filter of your core values and the things that you really care about, then that allows you to say, hey, this is something that I do want to pursue and try out, but it still needs to be a choice rather than just sort of defaulting to what's there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. You were asking, like, did I choose to stay in this role because I'm comfortable?
Right.
A lot of people do that. Mm-hmm. They don't even know that it's a choice.
Right.
They just stay there. They don't think about it. Is there any advice you would provide to them? Maybe they're happy and they just want to stay there. You never know. But if there's someone like deep within thinking, like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? What advice would you give them, or how can they get clarity about where they wanted to go to begin with?
Yeah, good questions. Open up a journal is where I'd start. Because, like we were talking about, like the idea, like I was lost in my own head. You take out a journal, you have a blank sheet of paper right in front of you, and you start writing, things are going to come up. Writing stuff down that way, and you can structure your journal. Like in the book, I've got all sorts of journal prompts and questions that can really kind of get you to dig deep on the things you really care about, how to get clarity. There's some exercises in there, and we could talk about some of them if you want. But just in general, opening up a journal, when you write in a journal, you can't write as fast as you can think. And that's a good thing, because it gets you to slow it down. Got to kind of breathe and relax, right? And it allows you to get things out and process things in ways that just sort of running through our head, often we'd never stop to capture and kind of feel into, right? And so if I was going to just suggest one thing, is open up a journal or a notebook and start writing about what you really care about and who you want to become and the things that you really enjoy and what maybe feels like a disconnect right now. What would you like to change? And do you have ideas on how to make that happen?
You mentioned you had a couple of exercises.
Yeah. You want
Can
to
you
dive into
share
something?
one? Can we go through
I
one?
mean,
Right
last time we chatted, Ramsey, I had you go through the exercise. So how about that?
now? Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Let's
do it. This,
I love these.
yeah, it's super fun. So I'm just gonna try and choose one here. Okay, so
We did the 5 questions, the 5
yeah, we did the
whys
5 whys
time.
last time. I want to dive into a exercise around genius zones. Okay, does that sound good?
Okay.
Let me just talk about genius zones for a second, and then we're going to do an exercise around it. So, a genius zone, sometimes also called by some authors and experts a unique ability. Okay. And we were talking earlier, like there's a lot of things you could do and you could do well. That might be a zone of excellence. Okay. Like you can do it really well and be successful. A genius zone is like one level further. Okay. Where you uniquely are among the best because of who you are, some of your innate talent, some of the experiences you've had in the past, and some of the skills that you have, and different things. So, a couple different ways to think about it. Like, hey, what are the things that when you're doing it, you really get in a state of flow or get in the zone, right? So you can start thinking about that. That state where you sort of lose track of time and you're just like really in it, right? Another way to think about it is like a set of combinations, almost like a Venn diagram, right? Of some of your experiences, your innate talents, the skills you've built over time. And when you look at those in combination, there are very few people in the world who are like you. I mean, all of us are unique. My mom always told me that I'm one of a kind. But there's some truth to that, right? And the experiences you've had and the things that you've done and how you've grown and therefore some of the things that you can do and create and influence are unique, right? So how would we uncover that in a way to leverage for a couple of reasons you want to do this. So one, if you can spend more time in flow and in your genius zone, your satisfaction is going to be quite high. You're going to enjoy it, and you're going to do some of your best work. Okay, so your development's going to be high. Second, if you can identify this, then you have the ability to communicate to others where you do some of your best work. And if you're looking for a job or other things, like this can be a pillar of a personal brand, as you communicate, like, this is where I really excel in amazing things. And if you can communicate that really effectively and they resonate with that and they need that, they're going to be like, yeah, this is the kind of person that we want, right? And that's if you're looking for a job or if you're a business owner and you're looking for clients, whatever that is, right? So let's go to you, okay, Ramsey? Let's go both angles here. So number one, flow. What is it that you do? What is the environment like? What's the situation when you can reflect back, and it can be work or non-work related, any area of your life, where you feel like, hey, this is me in flow?
I'm struggling with that question.
Okay.
Ever since I've moved into sales and ever since I've had 3 kids, it's been very difficult to get into a flow.
Okay.
If the closest I've gotten to a flow is thinking about things, I guess. Thinking about and writing down, obviously, not just thinking in the ether.
Sure.
But thinking about processes for sales engineers or how we can do things better in a demo or a discovery. These tend to put me as close to a flow as possible in this current life that I have. So yeah, I guess that is the question.
Yeah.
That is the answer that I have right now.
Interesting. So you talk about the challenges since you've been in sales and since you've had kids. What about before that? Think back before. Were there times that you felt like you were in flow?
Yeah, I mean, if I were to work on a demo
Hmm.
or learn something, I could. And the reason I don't have as much flow right now is the constant
Mm-hmm.
interruptions. Sales is kind of an interruption based role
Sure.
where if it's not the customer, it's your boss. If it's not your boss, it's your SE. If it's your
Mm-hmm.
there's a million. Uh, if it's not the SE and you work from home, it's the kids or the wife or something. Before that, it would be just again working on perfecting a demo, working on coming up with questions for discovery calls. I don't know if that's the area you want me to go
No, that's
into or
totally
not.
cool. So does that get you in a state like, hey, I'm enjoying this. Like I feel like I'm creating.
I'm
I'm
excited.
super. You're fully present. You're super focused. Yeah, you're excited, right? Like that gets
I'm excited about what's
okay.
coming. What's about what I'm creating.
Yeah, exactly. So that could absolutely be a flow state. And you talk about some of the challenges there, like constant interruptions, right? I imagine the times when you feel like you're really in it is when you, for whatever reason, you're able to close off some of those interruptions. Like the family,
Yeah,
the kids aren't around and interrupting you for that time, right? And
yeah.
it's not to say, you you stay away from the
Uh,
family. Like that's good too. I've got kids as well,
you got
and
more kids?
you're able to shut off notifications, or your boss isn't bugging you at that time, and you're really able to be present in that moment, right? So it's
Yeah,
partially what
yeah,
you're doing, but also the environment that you curate while you're doing it. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
And I imagine sometimes that when you're delivering demos and when you're in conversations, I can imagine that you get in a state of flow some of those times too, where you're just like really present with the people that you're talking to. You're able to really connect and on what their needs are, ask those great questions, and utilize some of those discovery things that you're able to do.
Now that you say that, when I'm interacting with
Mm-hmm.
people, is the only time I don't have interruption
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because they are my
Yeah.
priority.
Exactly. So
So
I
yeah,
bet that's some of your highest states of flow when
I never thought
when you're
about.
really
I
present
never
with
thought about.
people.
So I never thought about being in a state of flow with other
Oh,
people.
totally.
I always
Yeah.
thought about being in a state of flow like on your own, sitting in front of your computer and
No,
just
flow
working.
does not have to be an isolated experience. In fact, very often it's a connected experience with other people.
So this is kind of a flow,
Yeah, totally. If like we
and
are really
what we're doing.
present with
So
each
again,
other, having fun, having this
yeah,
conversation, and just really connected with each other, this could absolutely be a state of flow right now. Like I'm not looking at the
yeah,
clock.
okay.
I'm
So
just we're just having this really fun conversation.
see, that's why I like doing exercises with you. Um, yeah, I think where I get into the most flow, like today, I had an hour lunch or 2 hour lunch with a customer that went by like that, and we were laughing, we were
Totally.
connecting,
Exactly.
and being an introvert, that's a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
But that
I
that
guess
that's
that's where.
absolutely a flow state. So that's something for
Yeah.
you to recognize about yourself. Now, the other angle is I want you to think of three buckets. Okay. I want you and you might need to spend some more time with this. We might not be able to do this all live, but kind of thinking about a three-part Venn diagram. Okay, three circles that would intersect. Okay.
Yeah.
So circle one would be thinking of unique experiences that you have had. And that can be um, how you grew up, some of the cultures you've experienced, some of the different work experiences that you've had, some of the places you've traveled or seen, some of the, being a father is a unique, is an experience and how that shapes you, right? All these different things, those are experiences that you've had that have shaped you significantly. So that's kind of bucket number one. And you'd create a big list of those just to brainstorm, get it out in your journal. The other bucket would be kind of innate talents or gifts that you have. Like if you were to ask, and I would encourage you to ask the people that know you best, and even from when you were at a young age, like what would they say? Like, you know what, you just came out like wired this way, right? Or you had some natural abilities to do X, Y, or Z, right? What are those things? And because we all can I'm big on the growth mindset. We can all grow and develop things, but we do start a little bit wired for certain things, and it's good to recognize that what those strengths are. Bucket number 3 would be skills that you've developed, and that can be your ability to have some of the conversations you have, uncover the needs of customers, negotiate different things, and all the and you can do that in skills on your role as a sales guy or a sales engineer. That all the skills you've built over time. You look at technical skills. You can look at certain softwares. You can look at skills completely outside of your work as well, right? But when you start to you make these lists and look at all of them, and then you start to look at combinations of them, right? Oh, like, hey, maybe there's some unique combinations. The fact that you have a podcast and you've created a business and you do coaching and training with people in your work with We the SEs, right? That's unique compared to most sales engineers, right? And if you can communicate all of that in a way, well, if you can first understand that about yourself, that area of uniqueness and who you've become thus far, and look at that intersection, which could be genius zones. And by the way, you can have multiple, and you recognize that these experiences and skills grow over time. So our genius zones develop over time too, right? Then we can continue to leverage and build on them and look for ways that, hey, how can I live in that genius zone a little bit? But as I asked you some of those questions, what came up for you?
Unique experiences is, being born in Kuwait and raised in Lebanon, going through the 2006 war, coming to Canada on a boat, not all the way, but part of the way.
Totally.
Repeating university, or at least some university courses, because we couldn't afford to come back to Canada. Right. Lots of things about my life early on with my family, which shall remain private. Yeah. That's for unique experiences. Yeah. For innate talent, I put funny and I put coaching, and I put. I was gonna put angry mindset.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a talent. It's just I used to get angry and do stuff. I do better. If I wanted to do stuff, it's better to get me angry. I just tear through it. Yeah. That's when I get into a flow.
Interesting. Good to know about
developed
yourself.
Skill. What was that?
It's good to know about yourself.
I just thought about it. You're bringing it out. Developed skills. All I had to right now is connecting with people. I was about to write explaining complex ideas simply.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot more. Yeah, sure. This is what popped in my head right now.
All right. And so this is a great start, and you can look at, hey, how do some of these intersect in interesting ways? Like, one of the reasons I'm doing what I'm doing is because, I didn't understand the concept of the genius zone when I started this, but I kind of realized, I was doing this because of a combination of wide ranges of engineering skills and experiences that I've had. I had built some skills and had experience doing coaching, training, and personal development, a desire, and learned a lot about emotional intelligence, and was always kind of one of those people early on in my, from when I was a kid, that people would just come ask questions, and I would ask questions and kind of dig into what they cared about. And so there's some of these combination of skills, experiences, and talents that really combine in a beautiful way to be able to let me do what I do now in coaching and training and developing engineers, right? I didn't realize that at the time when I started this, but I've since been able to look back that's part of why I really gravitate towards this. It's me living in one of my genius zones, right? And so I imagine some of those things are one of the reasons why you do this podcast, right? And why you are one of the people who's uniquely qualified to do that for sales engineers, and the way that you have conversations and connect with people and have fun and enjoy that, right? So
The funny part is I started it because I was uniquely unqualified.
so you can go the other way and say, hey, what's a genius zone that I want to develop? And you go take the steps to go do that.
That's exactly
Yeah.
it. I started the podcast so I can get better as a sales
Yeah,
engineer.
totally.
It worked.
Yeah.
I think. I hope.
I would imagine that that's true, right? But all of that, like, what's cool about though, Ramsey, is that you decided instead of just sort of wilding like, hey, I'm not very good at this. I think I remember part of your stories, you got some pretty harsh feedback and that was tough.
Yeah.
And so instead of wallowing in that and saying like, yeah, I suck at this and I'm always going to suck at this, right? That's kind of a fixed mindset if we wanted to go into mindset stuff. You shifted your belief to say, yeah, okay, I can improve here and I'm going to go freaking take the action and, you know, take the ownership to go do that, right? But you believe that that was absolutely possible and that through doing something like this, you could become one of the best SEs around. Is that true?
I believe that if I don't do it, I'll continue to suck.
Okay.
And I had nothing to lose.
Okay.
And for me personally, I've always been the best that I wanted to be the best that I can be, because whenever I compared myself to other people, I always found them to be better than me.
Yeah. Comparison is the thief of joy. Comparison sucks. But, and that's true on both sides. If I'm comparing myself to someone else is better than me, or if I'm comparing myself like I'm better than them, that's not helpful either. Right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So this is interesting. And we could go deeper here on like, you've got some mindsets like, hey, if I do some extra work, like at least I'm not going to suck. And I feel like I can be better. But, are you really kind of really leaning into your best self in that way? Are you trying to avoid sucking, or are you trying to really be your best? What's the focus?
Both, I guess.
Okay.
I mean, I don't like being bad at something.
Sure. I don't know anyone that does.
But I know that if I wanted to do something new, I'm going to be bad at it too.
For a time, at least, yeah.
For a time, yeah. Like you're just going to start off bad. I don't know which one I was leaning towards more. I mean, I wanted to get better as an SE because I didn't want to suck.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
because you got angry, and so you said, "I'm going to go do this," to a degree. Right?
Yeah. Got it.
There's just a little bit of a difference in energy around those motivations, right? So, and I talk about in the book, like this idea of an approach orientation or avoidance orientation, right? And am I approaching who I want to become and what I really care about? Or am I avoiding something that I don't like?
No,
right.
I'm approaching. So when I recognize that I'm bad at something, I want to approach being good. I'm not afraid. I guess I'm not afraid of being bad because I know I'm going to be bad for a little bit. It's not like it's going to improve overnight. But I know that if I don't put in the work, I'll stay in my spot. And if I put in the work, at a minimum, I'll get a little bit better.
Perfect. Yeah. That's growth mindset 101 right there. Right?
I'll take it.
Yeah. So that's excellent. And has that become true, right? As you put the work and the effort into it, have you gotten better?
I've gotten a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to be true for anyone who's listening, right? If there's something like, hey, I want to try this, recognize it's not going to be an instant success. Like, that's fine, right? But you absolutely can change and adapt and develop that skill and that ability if that's something you really care about, right?
And stick with it.
Right? So there's a little bit of grit that we have to move with it, but that absolute belief that it's possible for us, right? Because some of the things that drag us down and keep us from making changes and improvements that are important to us are because we have mindsets that are driving us to believe that it's not possible. And we believe and we dig into and give into the fears of what might happen if we fail or something else, or someone's going to make fun of us, or whatever we are afraid of, right? You know? And some of those outcomes might happen, right? Like, we might get made fun of. We might get laid off. Or we might insert whatever terrible thing. Maybe, right? But the filter you can think through is like, does that fear or that worry or that belief, is that helping me to do anything that's useful right now?
Are you asking me that question?
Yeah.
Or was it rhetorical?
Well, it's for all of us, right? But we can get specific here, right?
I can tell you that I've never been afraid of anything other than remaining in my current position or remaining with my current skill set.
Tell me about that.
I've always been afraid of stagnating rather
Tell
than
me about that.
being fired. I'd rather take risks and get fired than not take risks and be and not move forward.
Okay. And how has that influenced the decisions you've made?
Well, where all my teammates at my previous job stayed in that role for way longer than they should by their own admission, I was the first to move out and get a job as a sales engineer early on at a company that didn't have the best reputation. Right? And everybody tried to scare me to not take that role.
And what gave you that courage and that ability? Like, where does that drive and that willingness to push through fear, where does that come from?
I survived bombs. I survived starvation. Right? I mean, that might be a little bit extreme, but we've been through crap.
Right.
Like, I'm born and raised in Lebanon.
Exactly.
Getting fired, like, we lived off of a hot dog can for I don't know how long. So yeah, I'm not afraid. And I didn't have kids, so I didn't really have a downside.
Yeah.
I lose doesn't work out, I go back.
Yeah.
Find another job.
Yeah. So how cool, right? That you went through some terrible experiences, right? But for you, you've been able to find meaning and grow through those experiences that have fueled your ability to push through some difficulties and take action in ways that other people wouldn't. That's part of your genius zone, is your ability, because of those experiences, to push through and take on challenges and have courage that few people have. Because of that. So I want you to recognize that. Like, that's super cool. That you took, some terrible circumstances that you were part of and had to get out of. But that has influenced you to be able to take some positive action.
I will take it.
Yeah, you should. That's part of who you are, right? It's part of your identity, and will always be.
So, speaking of your identity, did you know that you're going to be here one day?
No.
At what point, was there a point where you figured it out? That you knew this is my end goal? Or I don't even know if you're at your end goal.
Yeah, so, I mean, I was talking to a friend the other day who's kind of a mentor for me as well, and I like what he said. He's like, we're all climbing a mountain with no top, right? So there isn't really an end goal. Like, we're always in this process of becoming and improving, right? And that has been a difficult idea for me, who's has perfectionist tendencies, right? Where I'm like, I want to be there now, dang it. Like, but this kind of metaphor of climbing the mountain with no top, like, we have to learn to enjoy the journey, not to just seek for the destination. And at the same time, we can look back and still enjoy the view and how beautiful it is, and see that progress and how far we've come along the way.
Isn't it a little, I don't know what the right word is, depressing to know that you're on a mountain with no top?
If you choose to let it be. Yeah, and it has been for me at times, right? And that's what, like, when I'm digging into those perfectionist tendencies, I focus way more on the gap between where I'm at now and where I wish I was, and that gets me in a feeling of lack and scarcity, right?
How do you overcome that?
Focus on the progress, the wins, dig into gratitude, right? And
The
the
gap between where you were and where you
yeah,
are.
so a book I really love by Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan is called The Gap and the Gain, and this is where this idea comes from. Like, when we focus more on the gap between where we are now and where we wish we were, kind of our ideal self, um, we're always in that kind of state of lack. We focus instead on the gain and look at, hey, look how far I've come. How much progress have I made? Look at the cool people I've met. Look at what I've accomplished thus far. And the gratitude that comes from that. We get in a more powerful state because we're like, hey, look how far I've come. Then look how much further I can go, right? And what I can do. Like, to use the idea of the book, right? Like, I was in this gap. Like, I still haven't written this book, or any book, right? And I was in that gap, and I said, hey, I'm going to do this. And along the way, every day, every week, I say, hey, look at the progress I've made. The book isn't complete yet. It's not published yet. It's not in anyone's hands yet, but I accomplished this task, and I got this far, and I wrote this chapter, and I edited this draft, or whatever that was. I wasn't at that particular goal reached yet, and now I'm there like, hey, yeah, the book is published, but there's a whole lot more to do with it that isn't done yet, and that's fine. But also, I can be really grateful that I published the freaking book, and people are enjoying it. So, anyway, for what that's worth, maybe got off on a tangent.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's just the thought that popped in my mind. Like, we all have goals, right? We all want to achieve things, but some of us don't achieve it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, some of us are like fall
Mm-hmm.
short, or don't even, well, some don't even start,
Mm-hmm.
but many like just are right there,
Mm-hmm.
and they just fall short.
Yeah.
Have you had that
Oh,
experience?
totally.
And how have you done it?
Yeah, and there are those that ascribe to kind of an anti-goal mindset, like, because it feels like a paradox, right? Where we want to define that vision, who we want to become, what we care about, and work towards those things, right? At the same time, detaching from the outcomes as determinations of how we actually feel about ourselves, right? So does the goal, whether you met it or not, actually define you in any way, right? So if I say I want to make this amount of money, or I want to run a race at this pace, or like whatever that is, right? Does whether or not you achieve that particular goal define your value as a person, right? Or is it more
Yes.
important that goal or that vision or what you cared about helped you grow and progress through that experience? Just a personal experience just in the last couple months. I signed up for a triathlon, right? I hadn't done one in like 7 years. But I said, hey, I'm going to do this. And so every week I was running, swimming, and biking. And having that thing that I was shooting for was really helpful as a motivator to get more time in the pool and get my butt on the bike and get out and run. But the very week of the and I had desires to go at a certain pace, right? And I was tracking where my paces were and what I thought I could get to for the actual race. But the week of the actual race, I was out on a run, and about 1.5 miles into the run, my Achilles tendon just seized up like crazy, and I couldn't run anymore. And I was limping, and so I limped home. And the next day, it felt a little bit better. I just tried to go on a walk to just sort of stretch it out. Flared up again. For the next few days, I was limping and icing and whatever. And anyway, long story short, I couldn't actually do the race. Like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't hardly walk, let alone run. I maybe could have swam and biked, but yeah, it wasn't going to happen. So so is that a failure of that? Like, I could absolutely look at that as like, hey, I put all this time and effort in for nothing, right? Or I'd be really grateful that because I signed up for this thing, I spent a few months swimming and biking and running that I might not otherwise have done, and that was good for me.
See, that's the thing that's in my head right now. Like you were talking, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. He's actually able to do this. And then I was so sad that you were able to run the
Yeah,
race. I didn't think about the fact that, hey, at least you're healthy, or you got like you were able to do something for you. But yeah, it's interesting how people think
yeah,
about things. It's hard to think the way you're talking about.
yeah. It is.
It's a mindset
Yeah,
shift.
totally. And it's what we believe
Yeah.
about yourself, right? And so, um, so the next, and the thing is that it's a whole lot easier. Like I've found in working with hundreds of people that I've worked with over the last few years, and working on my own stuff, um, that it's a whole lot easier to believe in other people than to believe in yourself sometimes,
Yeah.
right?
I was just
Like
yeah.
like you, Ramsey, probably, uh, in our conversations, like you're someone who like you can build people up, like you can have fun with them, and you can see things in other people that they might not be able to see or believe about themselves, right? And I imagine that you take on that role with a lot of people that you come across. But if you're just trying to do that same way that you would coach or lift up someone else to yourself, that's a whole lot harder, right?
I call a lot of bullshit on
Yeah,
myself.
right. Which is
Yeah.
good if you can
Yeah.
do it. But we need people in our lives who know us, who care about us, and who can believe in us when we're having a hard time believing in ourselves. And those beliefs that we're digging into and accepting that are lies, that are not serving us, that are holding us back, they're garbage, right?
Yeah.
And so, and if we need to, we just say, hey, I need some help here, and we ask someone that can be certainly a paid coach or mentor. Sometimes I get to serve that role with people, or just a friend, family member, spouse, partner, whoever that is in your life that can remind you who you really are, so you can live and act from a place of power rather than fear and scarcity.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend the spouse for me personally. I have a very loving wife who tries to tell me how great I am, right? And I don't want you to tell me how great I am. I want you to tell me how crap I am, so I can defend myself. I'm weird. Let's just put it that way.
Whatever works
Jeff,
for you.
we're almost at the end of the hour. We're at the top of the hour. Was there a question you're hoping I was going to ask you, which I did not?
No, man. I mean, this has been a fun conversation, and what I really just care about and hope that the listeners kind of take from this is that who they are today doesn't have to be who they are tomorrow. If there's something that they want to change, get clear on that and try and connect with what they want, what they care about, who they want to become, and start taking that action. And if they want to go pick up the book, they can go do that. Find it on Amazon or go to theintentionalengineer.com. There's a free workbook that they get too, that kind of provides that space to really dig in and kind of be that journal or that reflection space. But and certainly if people want to go even deeper, then they can reach out to me. But I really just care about people kind of unlocking what is possible for them and believing in themselves, and making those choices to take that action accordingly.
What is your area of genius?
Yeah, so we've been talking about that. I was actually in a workshop last week around kind of purpose and identity, and I've got it right in front of me. Some of the things that I was writing down. I said that part of my purpose is to grow the light inside of me so I can be a light in the world to help others see their value and limitless potential. So I really feel like part of my Genius Code is helping people see what's possible for them and helping them have the courage to go take that. And usually I'm doing that in the context of engineers, technology professionals, and leaders who are trying to upgrade lives and careers in some way. But really it's about shining light on inside of their lives to see what's possible for them.
Well, I can tell you in our short conversation, you've helped me
Cool.
today. So I
Good.
appreciate that, Jeff.
Good.
If people want to get help from you, where can they do that?
Yeah. So jeff-perry.com. You can email me at jeff@jeff-perry.com. And again, go grab the book online, but or you can find me on LinkedIn. But I'm pretty findable. I have a simple name. There is like an actor that's named Jeff Perry, but I didn't know who he was. So
I'll leave a link to your Jeff Perry LinkedIn on the show notes. Jeff, it's as usual. It's been great talking to you, and looking forward for our next chat.
Absolutely, Ramsey. Thanks so much, and wishing you all the best.
And that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you, Jeff, for being here. Thank you for listening. I hope you take some time to journal, to figure out what your area of genius. What are you good at? What are you good at? What are you better than everybody else at? And where can you provide value to your employer, to your husband, to your wife, to your sister, brother, mother, whoever is important for you or to you? Because the area of genius doesn't necessarily mean it has to do with work. It could be like to do with family. It could be to do with sports, health, whatever it is. I hope you find it. I hope you go through the exercise. And if you need help with that, if you're an engineer who needs help with that, check out Jeff Perry. I've talked to some people who have life coaches. Maybe that's helpful. I haven't tried it. I have a lot of other kinds of coaches and mentors that are useful to me. So that's it for today. If you took one thing from this call, what would it be? Let me know. I would appreciate that. With that, I'm signing off.